So I had a pair of jeans I was going to wear, I was going to dress up, jeans. But I hadn't tried them on in quite some time. When I went to put them on, I couldn't even get my thighs in them. And that was this morning, so I was like, well, I guess that's not going to work. So that's the story. You ready? All right, there we go. Okay, so first off, I want everybody to kind of do something for me. I want everybody to close their eyes for a second. We're going to do trust ball. No, just kidding. Unless you want to. I will not catch you. Okay, so close your eyes for a second, and I want you to think of something. I want you to think of anything that brings you peace. And I use the word peace, not happiness, peace. Something, anything, no matter what it is. Now I want you to ask yourself two questions. First one I want you to ask yourself is, why? Why does that bring you peace? Why does that do that? And then the second question, why? Second question is, I want you to ask yourself, do you have a spiritual connection to that? Would you call that spiritual? And I ask that for a very important reason. You can open your eyes now if you want, or you can keep them closed, either way. I ask that because I'm here today to talk about mindfulness and spirituality. When I first got the ask, if you will, they had just mindfulness up. And while I agree that mindfulness is important, it's a sexy buzzword at the moment, I'm a little old school, and as you said, I practice the philosophy, if you will, the tradition of Buddhism. And while mindfulness is gaining traction nowadays, it's actually really old. It's roughly 2,000-3,000 years old. It originated as a piece to a larger puzzle. It wasn't just mindfulness. It was actually a tool within spirituality. Some call it religion, some call it spirituality. That's a debate we can have later on. So I'm going to talk about mindfulness, but in a sense of a larger picture of spirituality. So that's why we combine the two up. So mindfulness is an interesting practice. I know for me personally, it took me a long time to learn it. I'll get to my story in a second and why I can relate to some of the stories, even though I never really did the drug aspect of things. I was just kind of mean. And I use that to my advantage, I guess. But anyways, so mindfulness, first of all, how do you define it? Right? Like it's a hard thing to define. You can ask 30 different people and you get 30 different definitions of what mindfulness is. Right? So actually yesterday, myself and Lily, for the foundation, we were actually vetting the treatment facility down south. And as I was walking through, oddly enough, on one of the group rooms on the whiteboard, they had a definition of mindfulness. It was actually pretty spot on. It was really good. It was mindfulness, being aware of the present moment on purpose, non-judgmentally in a particular way. I think that's actually a pretty good definition of mindfulness. When I do the groups, how I typically refer to it, I guess, or teach people, is asking why. That's why I ask you guys to ask why. That's where the mindfulness, for me anyways, comes from, is instead of just going with the flow, instead of just doing stuff, why? Why am I doing this? Why do I get this benefit from it? Why do I hate it? Why do I like it? Why do I respond this way? And I think that's something we don't ask ourselves enough, right? So here's an example. This is why I have a parking lot, by the way. It's to remind me of the parking lot story. So, this was years ago. This is the beginning of my practice of spirituality. This is where I was kind of learning the benefit and the value of spirituality. And I had an ex with kids, and as you guys know, there's a reason why we're exes. I was on the phone with her, and the conversation didn't go well. I was talking about the kids and how we're going to do things, and I got on the phone very irritated, very frustrated. But I had to go to the store, I had to go to the grocery store to pick up, I don't know, groceries of some sort. And so I got in the car, I drove into the parking lot, and as I'm pulling into the parking lot, there's a couple who were close to where I was going, and they were loading the groceries into the car. But apparently the wife looked at me odd and felt that I came a little too close to the curb they were standing by. So me being who I was at the time, I got irritated with that. I was like, you looking at me like that? What? So I had every intention, I parked across the street, or in the next parking lot, I had every intention of making that into a scene. I had every intention of confronting her and having it out. But I stopped myself. That's where mindfulness comes into play. Why? Why am I getting ready to do this? For what? Is it really that big of a deal? Is she the one really pissing me off right now? No, of course not. I'm still holding on to what it was, right? And it was mindfulness to help me do that. Without the mindfulness, I just would have done it. Granted, afterwards, I probably would have figured out, oh, that's probably why I did that. But at that point, it's too late. Mindfulness is all about doing it beforehand, right? And so, for me, that is why mindfulness is important, but it's also why it's a piece to a bigger puzzle. Because without spirituality, I wouldn't have cared about mindfulness. For what? I was doing fine, man. I was handling my life. It was everybody else that was the problem, right? So, another, real quick before I switch to the next one, for mindfulness, is a way to practice mindfulness, right? So everybody's, how do we do it? Do I need to go somewhere? Do I need to know a guru, right? Do I need to watch a YouTube video? No, man, there's a one really very easy practice we can all do today. It's called the stop practice. Has anybody heard that? Right on, I like that. So stop practice. So it's a very simple practice. You can do it anytime in the daytime. It takes seconds. And in the Buddhist philosophy, we say, any moment that you don't think you have the time to do it, that's the exact moment you need to do it, right? So stop practice is S, it stands for stop, meaning stop what you're doing, stop the flow of activity, just stop for a second. T is think about what's happening, take a breath, think. In other words, what is actually taking place in front of you. Like really try to visualize, if you will, what's happening. Third one is O, which is observe. Observe what's happening, so that you're thinking about it, you're taking a breath, you're focusing on things, and then you proceed. That would be the P. It really takes seconds to do. There was a very famous monk, I'm not even trying to pronounce his name at the moment. He said that one of the greatest practices of mindfulness is doing dishes. Anybody here like doing dishes? My wife loves me because I love doing dishes. She hates doing dishes, by the way, so it's a perfect marriage. That's what I say anyway. So the reason why I like doing dishes is because it is the ultimate practice of mindfulness, man. It really, truly is. Think about it. We usually try to do dishes because we're trying to get through it, right? It's something I get done, I'm gonna get through it, get them over with. Where else in your life, though, do you have that kind of focus and that intent, right? Because when you're doing dishes, you're focused on the actual plate, whatever it is, to get it clean. Nothing else matters. You're strictly in the moment of doing what you're doing right there. Then you have the instant gratification of, hey, plate's clean, job well done, next. So, doing dishes is actually a very good practice, believe it or not. So everybody go home and do your dishes today. So stop practice is a great way to practice mindfulness. But leading to the next one, how do I do this? There we go. All right, so mindfulness. Why do I even care about mindfulness? Why was that even a part of my life? Because as Louis kind of alluded to earlier, I've never done drugs, right? But it doesn't mean I didn't do anything illegal or anything bad. But in fact, I wasn't even nervous about doing this until I pulled into the parking lot and I saw all the cops outside. Wow, what's the statute of limitations? So when I was a kid, I grew up in a pretty, we'll say, challenging home. I saw some things that little kids should never have to see, should never have to live through. So consequently, I grew up angry. I grew up bitter, mad. I blamed the world for all my problems. Just had this massive chip on my shoulder. And I was little at first, but I grew up to be much bigger. So I was able to actually use that anger sometimes. So I grew up, I was mad, angry all the time, got suspended. Who gets suspended from elementary school? Oh, there you go. I knew we were friends for a reason, bro. Yeah, I got suspended from elementary school. Almost got expelled. I actually brought knives to school one time and threatened this little girl that I was going to kill her if she didn't leave me alone. That was a proud moment for my mom. So anyways, I was angry, I was bitter. I got into criminal activity. I did basically everything you could think of that was illegal, other than drugs. I helped steal them. I helped people procure them. I just never did them. And I wish I had some like amazing reason for it, but it's kind of a shallow reason. I had a 4.0, as he alluded to, and everybody I knew at the time that was smoking weed was not a 4.0. And I enjoyed being smart, so I was like, I don't want to risk that this would mess me up. So I couldn't blame drugs. I had to blame this massive chip on my shoulder. And right around the age of 15, the cops showed up at my house, put me in the back of the police car at 2 o'clock in the morning, and said, you're going to jail for 15 to life for two felony counts. That scared the hell out of me. At 15 years old, like if my mom was an LEO, And so I was able to get away with a lot. But when they tell you you're going to jail at 15 years old until you're 30, okay, maybe it's time for me to pay attention now. Maybe it's time for me this isn't life for me. Either that or I just wasn't good at it. So I changed my routine, if you will. I got out of that lifestyle. I went to school, focused on that, focused on my career, focused on trying to just become the man that I wanted to be. So, fast forward a couple of years, I'm young, 21 at the time, I'm working at the Postal Service, I'm making $60,000 a year, I'm traveling, I'm doing things. Who's gonna tell me anything? I got it all figured out. Right? I was 21, I know everything right now. I've already done the street stuff, I overcame that, I'm winning. I was so mad, dude. I was so angry. I was so mad. I blamed everybody for all my problems. Everywhere I looked was another problem. Everything was just, it just sucked, right? And then I had another moment, and the other moment was my realization. And I didn't hear this actually until years after the fact, but it stuck with me, and I use it all the time now. And the phrase is, "Your best thinking guides you here." Anybody who's in recovery has probably heard that phrase before, and that's where I first heard it. It was from people in recovery. And when I first heard it, I was like, wow, that is a gut punch, man. Like those are fighting words right there. But it's true. Right? It was my best thinking. It was my way of figuring out my approach to things. That's what was creating all these problems in my life, my anger, my angst. And at the time, full disclosure, I'm an atheist. Religion just didn't do it for me. It's not something that interested me. I had bad experiences with it. So, and for me, I lumped in spirituality with religion. It was all the same. It was all foo-foos. Like, you guys are crazy, leave me alone. I want nothing to do with that. But they're all happy. Right? A lot of the ones I knew, like everybody I knew that was calm, well-spoken, had their stuff together, they had such a strong spiritual base. And so I couldn't ignore that. I was like, all right. And I was hard-headed and stubborn. And so I was like, all right, well, I don't think the spiritual stuff is going to work. I think it's stupid. But in order for me to say that, I actually have to try it. So let me try it first so I can tell you stupid. Pretty much. Yeah, I was a little bit of a rebel like this. So I started doing it, and the weirdest thing happened. I started feeling better. Like, I still thought the people I was talking to were stupid and needed to leave me alone, but I never felt the need to tell them about it anymore. I didn't feel the need to fix it. I was just like, whatever, man. And I left. And I walked away, and I started just overall feeling better in life, if you will. And it just kind of kept progressing. Next thing I know, years later, I'm teaching Buddhism to people. Never thought that would happen. And actually, I can thank Louis for that, by the way. I was never really interested in doing that until he likes to spring stuff on me and say, hey, come do this real quick. Okay. And I've been teaching Buddhism ever since. But the reason why it means so much to me, and for those of you who know me personally, watch the shows, I'm really, really passionate about spirituality. It's changed my life, man. It's given me the one thing that I don't think anything else can give you. And we're talking about natural assisted treatment here today. We all know about medical assisted treatment. We know that for the individuals who need it, things like Suboxone, whatever it may be, Vivitrol, they're very, very, very good about the physical symptoms of withdrawal for those who need it. It's awesome. It's great. The therapy that they get, it's great for coping skills, addressing their pain, things of that nature. It's fantastic for that. But nothing gives you peace, right? And that's something I didn't think I needed, man. When I was growing up and when I was doing my thing, I thought I knew everything. I would have fought you to tell you how peaceful I was, right? Like, you don't have peace. Yes, I do, and I would have proven it. I didn't say I was the smartest. I said I had 4.0. It wasn't until I started practicing spirituality until I got my peace. And the cool thing about peace, it feels good, man. It was like a warm blanket on a cold night. It really is. Peace is, when you have it, it's amazing. And every single one of you guys, when you started to close your eyes and you thought about what gives you peace, you can't tell me that when you thought about that, you didn't smile just a little bit right there. That's how cool it is, man. That's what spirituality does for you. And mindfulness is a part of that spirituality. That's why they go hand in hand. The other thing it gives you is perspective. Helps you understand what's important and what's not. What's worth your time and what's not. I had the okay practice. And have you ever seen Fight Club before? I know it's a little bit older movie for some of you, but there's a scene in Fight Club where the guy tells them to go out and start a fight and lose. That's kind of what okay practice is for me. The okay practice is, even if I think you're wrong, okay, it doesn't matter. You can be wrong, it's okay. I can disagree with you. And to me, I didn't learn that until spirituality mindfulness. It taught me that it's okay. Because up until that point, if I didn't agree with somebody, something inside me told me, if I didn't tell you how wrong you are, something bad's gonna happen. I got to tell you how wrong you are. And I focused so much on, I've got to have this debate with you, I've got to have this argument, whatever it may be. And the sad part about that, there's always another one. Even if I won that one, which we never win, have you ever convinced somebody, like look at Facebook, you have an argument on Facebook, does everybody say, oh my God, you're so right. No, man. I you just piss them off and they walk away, see, that's why I don't think that way. So for me, it provided a perspective of what's important and what's not. And the other thing it provided, as far as perspective, is there's different ones out there, and that's okay, right? Truth is 360. Truth isn't just mine. Like, every single person in this room is going to walk out of here today, and somebody in your life is going to say, hey, what'd you learn? And you're all going to walk away with something completely different. Who's telling the truth? Everybody, right? That's what you learned. That's what you took from it. That's your truth. And that's what spirituality helps you. It helps you understand, hey, there's different truths, and that's okay. Excellent. Helping others. So the reason why I think it's important, other than the fact that it completely turned my life around, and I have friends and family that I've seen do the same, but as Louis mentioned, I've done a lot of work with different treatment facilities. We have the radio show, and I have different groups and things I've done over the years. And the things I've seen, absolutely amazing. The best, being the fact that I'm not in recovery, the reason why I fell in love with this particular niche, if you will, some of the coolest people I've ever met in my life are in recovery. They just made some bad decisions at some point and they're paying for the rest of their life for it. And so for me, being able to help them and being able to have groups and then years later get a phone call or a text message or an email saying, hey, you spoke to me, man, and it stuck with me. I got goosebumps now just thinking about it. That's so awesome. To think me, the pissed off little kid that was mad at everybody, can now help people find peace. That's awesome, man. Like that's something completely different, man. That is a whole other level right there. And so, helping others, I got there's one person that sticks out in my mind. It was probably one of the first ones I think I had. So I was still new in the addiction world, and I'm doing groups, and Louis, love you to death, bro, but you didn't really prepare me for what I was going to hear. So I'm sitting here and I'm hearing some of these stories, and I'm like, holy cow, man, like, you went through what? It's hard to hear some of it, right? There's one particular girl, been through a lot in her life. And I'm doing a group, and if anybody's ever ran groups before, you always got like the ones that are really intently listening to you, the ones that you think aren't listening to you at all, and the ones that are kind of just there. Well, she was kind of just there. Never really thought much of it. I did my thing. Because my purpose, I guess, is I'm here to talk to those who want to listen. I'm not here to talk to everybody. Those who want to listen, I'm here to talk to them. So, went to the group, kind of unnoticed, and she graduated. She was fine, no big deal. Probably 3 years later, I think, maybe, I get a Facebook message. It's her. She was like, hey, I just want to talk to you about it. I want to tell you something. I'm still clean sober. I got my son back. I've gone to school. I'm now an RN. I'm buying a house, and I got a fiance. And life is doing great. And I had a lot of counselors, and I had a lot of people there, therapists, but your words stuck to me. That spirituality thing was really, really cool. And she started quoting stuff that I said to her. We call it Trinityism today. But it was cool. It was cool to hear that. I didn't do it. I guess he's out now. But Louis calls me frequently, because he gets phone calls a lot from people we've helped. And as he's talking to them, they'll say stuff. They'll mention like phrases. And he's like, I know exactly where you got that from. And so he'll call me and tell me, hey, guess who I spoke to? And this is what they said. So for me, that's proof that you can help people with this. Mm-hmm. Is it the end all be all? No, of course not, man. Like, it's a piece to a bigger puzzle. We all have to kind of work together. And I'm here to tell you that spirituality needs to be a part of that. It's another tool in the toolbox. It's not the end all be all, but it is another tool, and there is value to it. It does work. And some might say it works better than most. Because once again, it gives you peace. There's no pill out there that's going to give you peace, man. It's just not going to happen. Any supposed peace it gives you, it wears off very quickly. And then you're going to constantly be trying to chase that. It's never going to happen. And so, how you guys can take it back. First thing I would say, for everybody in here, if you're going to take it back to your friends, your family, your coworkers, your clients, whatever profession you're in, I would say the first thing is get your own spirituality. If you don't already have it, if you're not already connected to some sort of spirituality, find one. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be religion, it could be spirituality, it could be anything. It doesn't matter. But you got to have something, some sort of higher power. There's a phrase I love, and it's called you can't fill from an empty cup. You know, like all of us in the industry, we have a tendency to take on people's problems, that kind of thing. Well, spirituality is the same. How am I going to tell you about spirituality if you can't see it in me? How am I going to convince you how important it is if you don't really see it in me? And if you find spirituality, you'll exude that. You don't have to tell people you're spiritual. Don't tell by the way you talk, your aura, your presence. So the first thing I would say is get your own spirituality. If you already have one, grow it. You know, pay special attention to it. Make sure you remember how important it is to you and remember to practice that. Because it's going to be important when you talk to other people. And the other way I think you can help is for that person that comes into your life. You know, we sometimes can get caught up in the science-based stuff. We can get caught up in all the different acronyms and all these other things. Don't forget, spirituality has been around for thousands of years. And most of it's untouched. Think about that. I practice Buddhism, dude. I'm a white dude from Florida. That was 3,000 years ago on the other side of the world when we're talking about today. And it's virtually unchanged. Right? There's a reason for that. It works. There's something to it. So don't forget that. Don't get so caught up in the clinical stuff that we forget there's a spiritual component to this as well. Right? And so encourage them. You know, support and encouragement. Encourage them to find their spirituality, whatever it may be. Encourage them. And support them. When they come to you and they start talking about it, support them. Let them know that's a good thing. Point out books, point out movies, documentaries, anything that's going to help them walk that path and progress in their journey is going to be beneficial to them. Last one, I think, that would be my stuff. He already kind of mentioned a little bit. The top one is social media. WPSN99, that's the radio network that Lou and I are both on. Not as more as our foundation. Very, very quickly, for those of you who don't know, our foundation, very, very proud to be a part of it. Love the foundation, love the work that we do. What we do in threefold, really quickly, for those of you who don't know. First thing we do is we help navigate the treatment system. If you have a relative, a loved one who is struggling with the disease of addiction, and you're not in this room at the moment, you don't know who to call. Who do I call? What do I do? I'm in panic mode, I'm in crisis, I don't know what to do. I've heard all the bad stories, I know there's bad places out there, but criminals have a lot of money and they can make some really good websites. I don't know what to ask, I don't know what to do, that's where we come in. You call us, we help you navigate the system, we put you in places good for you or whoever your loved one is. Second thing we do is we scholarship treat you. If you're a middle class person, you got enough money to keep the lights on and pay your bills, but you don't have enough money to cover the deductible, or you can't stay away for 30 days unemployment, that kind of thing. We step in and we can help pay that. And actually, there's somebody they give us a scholarship. So there are people out there, our treatment facilities, fantastic ones, that do offer us pay-free scholarship beds. So that's another thing to do. The third one and final one is advocacy. As you said, I'm not in recovery, but I believe in advocacy. I'm the market that needs to be reached. Right? If you're in addiction already, you already know. It's me. It's my ilk, my people who don't realize that it's not the person I saw on TV in the 80s and 90s who were breaking your car, like, ooh, stay away from that person. It's not them. It's your brothers, it's your sisters, it's your neighbors, it's that loved one, right? And so we have advocacy work. We do that through the radio show and talking and things of that nature. So I believe that's all the time I have. Anybody got any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts?
See, Trinity, you do it for me, I do it for you.
Right on.
Who had the question?
You got nice pants, by the way.
Thank you. Who had a question? For the Dharma Guy. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I just want to thank Trinity for being such a great recovery ally. I mean, without you served so many in our community, and I just want to thank you, including myself. You've been there for me through a tough time. But as far as, one of the things that I think so many of us come across are those that are just where you were, completely against exploring that avenue. And so, I love that you spoke about your own experience. But is there any insights, if you can take yourself back there, you had to come to that realization that this is let me prove I'm wrong. Kind of see if is there anything else, through your experience of serving the community that maybe, for those of us that are having those real conversations, that we could maybe say or anything that has helped somebody else overcome that?
Yeah, I would say the short answer is love them where they're at, right? The more in-depth answer, if you will, was, when I was 18, 19 years old, I was angry all the time. There was no shortage of people telling me, hey, you probably shouldn't do that, but I didn't listen to them. I had to find out on my own for sure. But in spirituality and Buddhism more specifically, they have this thing called equanimity, right? And does everybody here know how to put batteries into a remote control? Hopefully, like a TV remote, right? We all know how to do that. That's a relatively simple thing for most. How long do you think you can sit there and watch somebody do it wrong before you took it from them and did it? Right? So that's one of the hardest things to do, is know how to do something right and watch somebody do it wrong. It's one of the hardest things for us to do. And so oftentimes, especially in spirituality, the idea is, I found peace, I know how to do it, this is what you need to do. That's not going to work, right? Instead, what I need to do is realize that's where you're at on your path, and to not contribute to any of your suffering. Instead, I just give you love, compassion, kindness, generosity, and through that, you'll come around eventually. It's consistency. It's not an overnight thing, man. It's not gonna, it's not a switch you flip, but you definitely get a lot further by, as Gandhi said, being the changes you want to see, right? Like, give that person love and compassion and acceptance, and eventually, it's kind of hard to be mad at somebody who's just genuinely being nice to you. It's very hard to do that. It takes a lot of energy. And so if somebody's giving you love and compassion, eventually you're going to come around and be like, this person's always been cool to me. And this is what they're preaching. Maybe I should look into that.
Any other questions? Oh, yes. I'm coming.
Sorry, I always have questions. So I understand what you're saying, but with that philosophy, does that apply to adolescents too and adults? It seems to me like when you have adolescents who are doing crazy things, and parents are responsible for that. And do you just sit back and be nice and love them while they're frying their brains on stuff, and then as they become adults, they can't even think clearly because of what they did as kids?
Right. Spirituality, yes. But as far as watching them, using and things, no, you get them help and get them out of crisis. But actually, some of my best interactions have come from adolescents. Like that is, my main reason why is I treat them like humans. Like I remember when I was a kid, I had so many people wagging their finger at me, and I got really good at tuning that out. Especially if I felt that they weren't on my level, right? I was an arrogant little shit, man. So nobody was on my level, right? And so when they would talk, I got really good at tuning them out. But the ones that didn't tune out are the ones that treated me and listened to me, gave me value. And so I think that is the key to the adolescent, is remembering that they're little people, like they're humans. I know that I got kids as well, man, and I know that we feel the need to protect and shield and guide, but it's easier to guide with a soft hand than it is a hard hand, basically. And so it's been my experience. I've had good luck with adolescents in the sense of just coming at them on their level, just talking to them as opposed to acting. But as far as the drug, if they're in crisis, get them out of it for sure. Because if you're in crisis, if you're intoxicated, you're not listening to anything. Nothing's going to make even your own common sense isn't going to work at that point. So.
And by the way, I treated adolescents, and he did group for me with adolescents. They were first-time offenders in Seminole County, and he did phenomenal with them because he listened. With spirituality, when someone's doing spirituality well, they're non-judgmental and they're listening. And a lot of young people that are having problems with drugs and alcohol don't feel very listened to. So I think they can appreciate a spiritual approach where you're actually actively listening, and you're kind of just, help them, guide them by their own conversation rather than you telling them you're wrong, you're doing something wrong. So I saw it firsthand with him. That's what he actually treated adolescents for me before I even put him in adults, because he was that effective with adolescents, but adults. Anybody else with a question? Oh, that made it easy.
What is wrong with not being at peace? And again, balance in life, but there's times when you shouldn't be at peace. And what's wrong with that?
What's wrong with not being at peace? Well, I would say that not being at peace, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all searching for one thing, right? We're all searching for happiness. And we define that differently. We have different methods of getting there. We all think our way is the right way, essentially. But at the end of the day, it's all trying to find happiness. We're all trying to find that. And the problem is, I think a lot of us have a misunderstanding of what happiness is. Right? A lot of us think happiness is pleasure, right? But like happiness is so much closer to acceptance than it is to pleasure. And just because you accept something doesn't mean you like it, right? Like I got problems in my life, man. I got a 19-year-old, I got a 14-year-old daughter, and I'm like, there's a lot of problems. And so there's a lot of stuff I'm discontent with, and I'm actively trying to correct. But my happiness is not dictated on any outcome. I choose to be happy because nobody's going to touch my peace. That's mine. And no matter what happens around me, I have peace. And that peace is what enables me to make wise decisions and insightful decisions. It allows me to respond to things as opposed to react. Like when you're not at peace, you tend to react. And I don't know about you, but my reactions are usually not that good. My responses are fantastic. When my reactions, not so much. And so when I'm at peace, I'm coming from a more centered place. Once again, it's like you can't fill from an empty cup, right? So if I have that knowledge, I have that peace, then my responses will be much, much different than if I'm emotional and I'm responding or reacting to things. So
let me rephrase it.
Okay.
If you're not accepting something, if you don't accept something, for example, you're not accepting that someone has an addiction, you're not at peace with them. That's what I'm saying. So you come to accept stuff, which then gets you to a different level of peace.
Okay, I think if I understand you correctly, right? Like, so when I do groups, for instance, as I said earlier, I talk to those who want to listen. There's a phrase in Buddhism, for instance, when Siddhartha became the Buddha. One of the other entities came down and said, he said, hey, I can't teach this to everybody. It's impossible. It's too hard. It's never going to work. And he pointed down to the lotus flower, right? I don't know if you know anything about lotus flowers, but they grow in the mud. And so not all of them make it. The ones that do make it are the ones that the sun hits and they make it. So one out of ever how many will make it, right? So when I'm in groups, somebody's in active, addiction, and I'm trying to help them, I do accept their addiction. That's who they are. That's where they're at right now. There's nothing I can do about that. So I love them where they're at, and I'm not focused on the result. I don't control the result. That has nothing to do with me. That's where they're at, where they need to be. So I am at peace with that person. I'm not at peace with, or I'm not accepting or enjoying their decision making, but that's their decision making. That's where they're at. I gotta love them where they're at. And so my peace with them still remains. And it's because of that they actually listen sometimes. Because when I'm trying to change them, they close up real quick. Because at the end of the day, like we've all done it, man. Like we've all been 17, 18, 19 years old, and we thought we knew everything. And most of us probably didn't listen to the person telling us we were wrong. We did when we got older, we look back like, oh God, why didn't I listen to that? And so that approach is just not gonna work. And what it's gonna do is it's not only going to shut them up, but then you're gonna have that in you as well. You're gonna be sitting with that. And that's suffering, right? And so pain, we can't do anything about. It's the suffering we can do. The suffering, we do that to ourselves. And the cool part is, you can stop. You don't have to do that. You can choose not to. It's really hard, but it can be done. But if I'm suffering, my responses to people are going to be much, much different than when I'm at peace. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Anybody else? All right, so what we're going to do, thank you very much, Dharma Guy. I was thinking I was in the back of the room, I should have put it to his beard. That would have been,
I thought they were going to.
I almost did.